The spectre of a Third World War hangs over humanity like a sword of Damocles, a chilling reminder of our capacity for self-destruction. The world has witnessed two such conflicts, leaving scars that have yet to fully heal. Now, with advancements in technology and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, the potential consequences of another global conflict are almost too terrifying to contemplate. The very existence of humanity could be at stake. This is not hyperbole, but a stark assessment of the potential devastation. The development and use of nuclear weapons marked a turning point in human history. For the first time, we possess the ability to obliterate ourselves many times over. The horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki serve as stark reminders of the devastating power we now wield. The destructive yield of modern nuclear weapons dwarfs those used in World War II, making the potential consequences of their use exponentially greater. Beyond the immediate devastation of a nuclear explosion lies the threat of radioactive fallout. This invisible killer can spread across vast distances, contaminating water supplies, poisoning crops, and causing long-term health problems, including cancer and birth defects. The environmental impact of a nuclear war would be catastrophic, potentially triggering a nuclear winter that could plunge the planet into darkness and famine. The threat of a Third World War is not merely a theoretical concern. Geopolitical tensions continue to simmer in various parts of the world. Regional conflicts threaten to escalate into wider confrontations, and the possibility of miscalculation or accident cannot be ignored. The stakes are simply too high to ignore. The destructive power of nuclear weapons is almost unfathomable. A single nuclear detonation can vaporize entire cities, instantly killing millions. The bombs developed today are far more powerful than those used in World War II. The use of even a small number of these weapons could have catastrophic global consequences. The threat of nuclear war goes beyond the immediate devastation of an explosion. Radioactive fallout can contaminate vast areas, making them uninhabitable for generations. This invisible poison can spread through the air and water, contaminating food supplies and causing long-term health problems. The concept of nuclear deterrence has long been the primary strategy for preventing nuclear war. The idea is that the possession of nuclear weapons by multiple nations creates a stalemate, as each nation understands the devastating consequences of using them. However, this delicate balance relies on rationality and clear communication, factors that cannot be guaranteed, especially in times of crisis. The risk of accidental or unauthorized nuclear launch is a constant concern. Technical malfunctions, miscommunication or human error could have disastrous consequences. Furthermore, the increasing availability of nuclear technology raises the spectre of non-state actors acquiring these deadly weapons. While nuclear weapons pose the most immediate and catastrophic threat to humanity, biological and chemical weapons are equally insidious. These weapons are often referred to as poor man's nukes because they are relatively inexpensive to produce and can inflict significant damage. Biological weapons utilize deadly viruses, bacteria, or toxins to inflict harm. These agents can be spread through the air, water, or food, making them difficult to detect and contain. The effects of a biological attack can be devastating, leading to widespread pandemics and mass casualties. Chemical weapons use toxic chemicals to poison and incapacitate their victims. These agents can cause a range of debilitating effects, from severe burns and respiratory failure to blindness and paralysis. The use of chemical weapons is a violation of international law, yet these weapons have been used in recent conflicts, highlighting the continuing threat they pose. The development and use of biological and chemical weapons are particularly concerning because they are indiscriminate in their effects. These weapons do not distinguish between civilians and combatants, making them particularly cruel and inhumane. The long-term consequences of a biological or chemical attack can be devastating, leading to widespread fear, distrust, and instability. The environmental consequences of a Third World War would be nothing short of catastrophic. Beyond the immediate destruction caused by nuclear explosions and the long-term effects of radiation, the environment would suffer irreparable damage from a variety of factors. The detonation of numerous nuclear weapons would release massive amounts of soot and debris into the atmosphere. This would block sunlight, leading to a nuclear winter that could last for years. Temperatures would plummet, causing widespread crop failures and leading to global famine. The use of conventional explosives, incendiary weapons and chemical agents would further devastate the environment. Forests would be incinerated, releasing massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and exacerbating climate change. Water sources would be contaminated and ecosystems would collapse, leading to a loss of biodiversity. The long-term effects of a global conflict on the environment are difficult to comprehend. The delicate balance of Earth's ecosystems could be irrevocably disrupted, leading to unpredictable and potentially catastrophic consequences for all living things. Section 5. Economic collapse. The crumbling foundations of civilization. The economic fallout of a Third World War would be swift and devastating. The global economy is deeply interconnected, and a major conflict would disrupt trade, finance and production on an unprecedented scale. The immediate impact would be felt in the financial markets. Stock markets would crash, currencies would collapse, and global trade would grind to a halt. The destruction of infrastructure and the loss of human capital would cripple industries and businesses worldwide. The interconnectedness of the global economy means that the economic consequences of a major conflict would not be confined to the warring nations. Even countries far removed from the conflict zones would experience economic hardship, social unrest, and political instability. The long-term economic consequences are difficult to predict, but would undoubtedly be severe. The destruction of infrastructure, the loss of skilled labour, and the disruption of global trade would take decades to recover from. Section 6. Cyber warfare, the digital battlefield. In the 21st century, warfare is no longer confined to physical battlefields. Cyber warfare has emerged as a new domain of conflict, one with the potential to cause widespread disruption and chaos. Cyber attacks can target critical infrastructure, such as power grids, communication networks, and financial institutions. A major cyber attack could cripple a nation's ability to function. The disruption of power grids could lead to widespread blackouts, affecting hospitals, transportation systems, and emergency services. Attacks on communication networks could isolate entire populations, while assaults on financial institutions could destabilize economies. Cyber warfare is particularly dangerous because it is often difficult to attribute attacks to specific actors. The anonymity of cyberspace allows state and non-state actors to operate with relative impunity, increasing the risk of miscalculation and escalation. Section 7. The human spirit, resilience and rebuilding. Despite the potential for unimaginable destruction, it is important to remember that humanity is remarkably resilient. Throughout history, we have endured wars, famines, natural disasters and other calamities. Each time we have found ways to rebuild and move forward. The human spirit is capable of great compassion, ingenuity and determination. In the aftermath of a global conflict, we would undoubtedly witness extraordinary acts of courage, selflessness and innovation as people came together to rebuild their shattered lives and communities. The lessons learned from past conflicts have taught us the importance of international cooperation, diplomacy, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. These lessons would be even more critical in a post-apocalyptic world, where cooperation would be essential for survival. Section 8. Lessons from history, echoes of the past. History is replete with examples of the horrors of war and the resilience of the human spirit. The two world wars of the 20th century serve as stark reminders of the devastation that can be unleashed when nations resort to armed conflict. The lessons learned from these conflicts, particularly the importance of international cooperation and the need for effective mechanisms to prevent future wars, led to the creation of the United Nations and other international organizations. These institutions have played a vital role in maintaining peace and stability in the decades since World War II. However, the threat of a Third World War remains a stark reminder that the lessons of history are easily forgotten. The rise of nationalism, the resurgence of great power competition, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction all point to a world where the risk of catastrophic conflict remains a clear and present danger. Section 9. The urgency of diplomacy, preventing Armageddon. In a world armed with weapons capable of unimaginable destruction, diplomacy is not merely an option but an absolute necessity. The prevention of a third world war with its potential for human extinction must be the paramount goal of all nations. Diplomacy, dialogue, and multilateral cooperation are the only viable paths to lasting peace. International institutions such as the United Nations must be strengthened and empowered to address global challenges, mediate disputes, and enforce international law. The pursuit of peace requires a commitment to dialogue, compromise, and understanding. It demands that nations set aside their differences, find common ground, and work together to build a more peaceful and just world. Section 10. A fragile world, safeguarding our future. We live in a fragile world, one where the consequences of miscalculation, aggression, or accident could be catastrophic. The threat of a third world war, with its potential for unspeakable destruction, is a stark reminder of the importance of peace, diplomacy, and international cooperation. The responsibility for preventing such a catastrophe rests on the shoulders of all nations. We must work together to address the root causes of conflict, promote dialogue and understanding, and build a world where war is no longer an option. The future of humanity hangs in the balance. The choices we make today will determine whether we create a world where peace prevails or one consumed by the fires of our own making. The stakes are simply too high to fail.